Hello designers! In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a collage in honor of Valentine's Day. We are going to personalize our collage by creating a brand new pattern from scratch to use as our background, by using layer effects to amplify our hearts, and by clipping images of our beloveds into the hearts. So let's go ahead and get started. The very first thing I'm going to need to do is create two brand new documents. So the first one is going to be the background for the collage itself. I'm going to select print from the print preset because ideally this is something that I would give to that person on Valentine's Day. I'm going to select letter size because that's the, paper size that I can print on. And I'm going to name my document Valentine's. Now I can see when I select print, I have the width and the height already put in for me, so I don't need to take care of that. However, I'm going to change the orientation so that the long side is now the width by 11 inches, meaning the top and the bottom of the paper should be the long side. And that's how you switch orientation. So this would be vertical and this is horizontal. I'm going to leave it at horizontal and click Create. Now you might have seen I have several pictures already of my son. And these are the pictures that I'm going to be using to illustrate my collage. So ideally, I don't want you guys to use pictures of strangers that you have no emotional attachment to. I want you guys to use pictures of people in your lives that you love. Alright, this is going to be the document onto which I'm going to draw my collage. But before I do that, I need to define a brand new custom pattern. So I need to create a brand new document from scratch. Just follow me on this. We're going to go to File and New. And now this document is just going to be used to define the brand new pattern. It's not something that I'm going to see in print. It's not something I'm going to, exhibit in social media. So I'm just going to select the web preset so that my measurement unit is already set to pixels. I'm going to name this document Pattern. And I'm going to put in a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. And the resolution should already be set to 72. And I'm going to click Create. Now you'll see that this document is very, very, very small. It's only 100 pixels by 100 pixels. So if I use the zoom tool and click Fit Screen, it will enlarge for me so I can actually see what I'm doing. Having done that, I'm going to look for my vector shape tools. If I look from the bottom of my toolbar and count 2 up, I'm going to go 1 and 2. Here are my vector shape tools. Nested under this rectangle tool are several other tools, including the custom shape tool. The custom shape tool has a bunch of different shapes that are already put into Photoshop for you to use on different projects. So right now, if I go to my options bar, I can see the last shape that I was using was a flower. I'm going to scroll down and try to look for a heart because, again, this is in honor of Valentine's Day. If for whatever reason you're missing this wide diversity of shapes, you can always click on that little gear icon and select Reset Shapes. Okay, and then it's going to show you a bunch of other shapes. And aha! Here's the heart I wanted. So I'm just going to drag it out and place it towards the middle of my document. Now, I don't want my pattern to feel kind of rigid. I actually want it to be a little bit more spontaneous and cutesy. So I'm going to go to the Edit menu and select Free Transform so I can rotate this particular heart. I like that rotation, so I'm actually going to go and hit Ctrl J to duplicate that one heart. You can see that now there's 2 layers in my layers panel. Drag, and then once again, Free Transform so I can rotate it in a different direction. I want 2 overlapping hearts for this pattern. Now that I have the hearts positioned in shape, I can alter the colors that they're going to appear in. So for heart number 1, I'm just going to click on the custom shape tool again. And under the fill, I had previously selected green just so I could kind of see where it was going. But I'm actually gonna, instead of applying a solid color, I'm actually going to select gradients because I'm kind of a gradient freak. And I think what I'm going to do is select from one of these gradients, one of these three color gradients, or two or three color gradients. I'm going to select this rainbow gradient first, and I'm going to double click on the gradient stops so I can actually select different colors from my pattern. So again, I'm going for a very cutesy kind of Valentine's inspired collage, so I'm going to select colors that I feel represent the love I have for my son. But you guys can select colors that reflect whatever you happen to feel for the person in your collage. Again, all I do is double click on those gradient stops, and then I'm actually able to customize the colors in the gradient. I'm totally loving that, so now I'm going to work on the next heart. And I'm going to select the shape tool again, go to fill and gradients, select a gradient, and do the same thing where I go and click on the color stops. And I think I'm going to make this one look just a little bit different. I don't want them both to be exactly the same. Okay, love it. If there's something else that you guys wanted to add to your pattern, this would be the time. Right now, I'm just going to go ahead and define it as a pattern because I want to keep it pretty simple. So I'm going to go to Edit and Define Pattern, and now I get to name it. I don't recommend just leaving the default name pattern because if you're creating a lot of different patterns, you may get confused. So I'm going to call this one Hearts and click OK. I no longer need this document, so I'm going to X out of it and move on. This document that I now have open is just the Valentine's Day collage document where I'm going to be creating this background. Now there's a lot of different ways that I can work with patterns here. If I wanted to just do an overall color, or if I wanted to do an overall gradient in the background, or if I wanted to apply some kind of pattern, I could theoretically go to Edit and Fill, and from the contents, select what I actually want to put into this background, whether it's a color, a pattern, and so forth. If you're working on Photopea, which is a free alternative to Photoshop, this is not going to be an option because you don't have the ability to fill your document with a pattern that way. Instead, you'll want to go to the bottom of your Layers panel and select Create New Fill and Adjustment Layer, and we're going to select a new pattern layer. Now, by default, the pattern that was selected was the last one I created from the many other patterns that I had created earlier. And it looks beautiful. Now I can actually go and select the scale at which I want to see the pattern. It's set to 100% by default, but if I go and increase it, I can see that those hearts are a little bit bigger and they are a little bit more spaced apart. I think I'm going to leave it at around 200. 150. I think I like 150 and click OK. And that's what it looks like so far. Now, I think what I might want to do is actually go in and blend this pattern with some kind of solid color layer. So I'm going to go to the bottom of my Layers panel again and select Create New Fill and Adjustment Layer from this little icon that looks like a yin and yang, and select Solid Color Layer. And I'm going to select some kind of color that I want to use on my background. So maybe this pale pink, and blend it in. So this is when I would use my blend modes that I can find right here in my Layers panel, and select a blend mode that is going to help me blend the pattern so I can see it with the overall solid color. I'm just going to leave it at multiply for now, and then maybe lower the opacity because it is a little strong. I want just a slight pink, not an overwhelming Barbie house pink. Gonna leave it around 40%. All right, that looks great so far. Now I'm ready to go and start making the overall shapes where I'm going to be placing the pictures of my beloved son. So once more, I'm going to be looking for my custom shape tool, and I'm going to right click on the vector shape tools and select custom shape tool. In the options bar, I'm going to look for the heart and drag it out. Doesn't really matter what color it is because we're actually going to be inserting a picture in here. So once again, I actually want to go and use free transform to resize and rotate it. Anytime you resize, you want to hold down shift so it stays proportionate. And press enter when you're happy with how it looks. Now before I go and clip an image in here, I want to spend a little bit of time making it look a little bit more three-dimensional. It's just like a basic two-dimensional heart. So this is where I would go to the FX icon at the bottom of my layers panel, which basically opens up my different my different layer effects. But I'm actually gonna go and double click on it, which does basically the same exact thing because I don't really know what effects I want to apply here. I think I want to play around with it a little bit first. So I think first I might want to apply a drop shadow. Now look closely at my heart. No drop shadow, drop shadow. So the drop shadow helps to kind of make it look a little bit more 3D, like it has some kind of weight. I want to adjust the distance of that drop shadow, so I'm going to double click where it says drop shadow, and then I can actually drag how much of a distance there is from the heart. I can edit the size, which is basically going to make it a little bit fuzzier so it doesn't look so distinctly different. And I can always go and change the color. But I think this color that I had selected when I was working on another project works really well. So I'm happy with that. I think I'm going to want to apply a stroke around the heart. So I'm going to select a color for that stroke first. Think again, I'm going to go with another pale pink. And then I'm going to increase the size of that stroke. I'm going to set it to about 20 pixels. You can eyeball it based on whatever you want it to look like. I'm going to click OK. And now that I have several effects applied on this one heart, I think I might want to go and click Ctrl J to create a duplicate and drag. And now I'm going to select free transform again so I can rotate this duplicate and stack them again like when I was creating the pattern. And resize as needed. So I think what I might do is actually resize the heart underneath. Alright, so we got some nice three-dimensional stacking motions going on here, and now I'm ready to start clipping images inside of these hearts. So I already took the time to open the images that I wanted to use. Now these images are fairly huge, so I'm going to, before I start moving them over to my collage, crop them up a little bit. I'm going to use my marquee tool. I'm going to drag a selection around the part that I want, so in this case would be my son's face. And let me just zoom in here so I can see what I'm doing. Use my marquee tool and drag a selection around the part that I find most interesting about the photo, in this case his beautiful face. And then select my crop tool and press enter twice to crop all of the stuff around it. And this is going to make it easier for me to deal with. Now I'm going to select this image, Ctrl A, To select, Control C to copy, and flip over to my Valentine's collage and select Control V like victory to place it. I think I might actually have to resize it bigger, which I wasn't expecting, but that's okay. So this is the heart that I want to place this image in. I'm going to actually resize the picture, make it a little bit bigger. So use free transform again, hold down shift anytime you're going to resize an image. The shift is actually going to depend because I'm using a later version of Photoshop. I'm using the 2020 version if I'm not mistaken, and you don't have to press down shift. So it really depends. Play around with it. If it looks deformed, then don't use it. Alright, so the image looks big enough, and now I'm going to right click on that image layer and select Create Clipping Mask so I can clip my son's beautiful face inside of this heart. And then I can always move it around as necessary. Okay, beautiful. Now on to the next heart. So I'm done with this image. I can X out of it. And now I have two other images that I can work with. I think I'm going to select this beautiful image, but it is a little bit dark. So before I do, I'm going to just use my adjustments to go and just increase the brightness of this image because it is a little bit dark. Actually go, maybe use the vibrance adjustment a little bit. Increase the vibrance. The image. And now I actually need to merge all these layers because if I try to copy it, it would only copy the adjustment layer. So I'm going to right click and select Merge Visible. And now move my beautiful son's image over to the collage. Control A to select, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Alright, now I'm gonna move this image layer on top of the second heart and clip the image layer inside of the heart by right clicking on the layer, select Create Clipping Mask, and that's what it looks like thus far. So I can just go and position it. I might need to go and resize it a little bit more. I actually just opened Free Transform with the Command T if you're on a Mac, Control T if you're on a PC, which makes it a little bit faster to work. Beautiful. I mean, I did birth them, so I'm biased. Alrighty, so this is where, having done this much in the collage, you can go and add a few other decorative elements before you call it quits. So I think I might want to go and add some kind of type expressing my love for my son. So I'm going to select the type tool, and I'm going to drag out with the type tool, it looks like a capital T, a text box into this space right over here between the hearts. Now you'll notice that when I drag out a text layer, or rather when I use the type tool, it drags out its own text layer by default. So I don't have to worry about that. I can see that previously I was working on another project and I had set the text to 133 points, which is quite huge. So I'm actually going to go and lower the point size. I can either click on that little arrow in my options bar to lower the point size to one of these default sizes. 72 points would equal about 1 inch if you were measuring it. I'm going to select 72 points for now, and I'm going to select a font that is interesting to me. I have a lot of different fonts here because I have installed many fonts to this computer. You can check out my video on how to install fonts from dafont.com if you are dissatisfied with your font selection and you want something a little bit fancier to express your love for that person. I might write something like Happy Valentine's. I think my type was a little big, so I might have to go and lower it. All I'm doing is just scrolling to the left, and you can see that it gets progressively smaller. That's better. Alright, now clearly I can't really see anything because of the color that this is set in. So I'm just going to go and highlight this block of text and go to the color that's set right here in the options bar for my text. Now I could try to match some kind of color here within the color picker, or I could go and drag over the image and you'll see this little target that's going to match the colors that it senses in the image. So I just randomly clicked on one of the shadows of my son's face until I find a color that I like. Okay, that looks good. Now I want to go and apply some effects to my type to also make it look a little bit more 3D. And I'm actually going to go and move these two hearts up. I just selected Shift. I shift clicked and I'm just going to go and drag them up so that the type isn't necessarily overlapping so much. But I'm going to double click on my type layer so I can apply some layer effects to this one as well. So I might want to go in, for example, and apply a drop shadow to those as well, which is going to make the idea is to make the type a little bit more legible. So let me lower the distance, spread, and the size. You guys are going to adjust it based on your needs. Maybe apply a gradient on the text because, I mean, who doesn't love gradients, right? And this time again, I'm going to double click on the gradient stops and actually drag over the image and pick colors from the image to use on the gradient. I applied a drop shadow, gradient overlay, a stroke, so let's not overdo it here. I'm just gonna click OK now. Now that I've finished the text, I'm pretty much ready to finish my work and export it to the appropriate format. There's only one thing that's bugging me here, and that is that the text is a little bit illegible, only because it's conflicting with the background of this very attention-getting pattern that I created. So I think what I'm going to do is actually create some kind of shape to use as an overlay underneath the text, and to use to kind of like compromise the pattern a little bit so that it's not necessarily as obvious where the text is. So here's what I'm going to do for that. I'm going to just select the color fill layer, and I can select this color fill layer only because it's underneath all these other shapes, and I want the shape that I'm about to create to go underneath all of these hearts. So I don't want it to necessarily overlap the hearts because I did a lot of work on them. So anyway, I'm just going to use my custom shape tool again. And I'm just going to go and drag out maybe just another heart just so I can keep using the same similar kind of shape. The color right now is set to black, which I'm obviously not going to keep because it doesn't go one bit with my the aesthetic of my collage. So I think what I'm going to do is change the color and lower the opacity so I can still see the pattern just a little bit. So anyway, having positioned that shape, I'm going to select the custom shape tool again, and for the fill, maybe select a nice pale pink to go with the rest of my collage, and lower the opacity of that shape just a little bit so that this heart functions as an overlay, but I can still see all the beautiful pattern work that I did. And that right there, just that really minor little overlay, makes my text a lot more legible. Now if I wanted to make this a little fancier, I could go and edit the images. I'm just gonna setting it to 65% here. Now if I wanted to make this a little fancier, as I said, I could go in to the images, maybe apply some filters, but I think at this point I really like the collage so far and I'm ready to save the final draft. Now presumably I'm going to print this out and give it to my son. Not sure whether he's going to appreciate it because he's only 1 year old, but I want to select a format that's going to be appropriate for printing. So in this case it would be PDF. I'm going to go to File, Save As, and under Save As Type, I'm going to select Photoshop PDF and call it something. So I was experimenting with this before. I'm going to call this version 2. And click Save. And I should be getting a dialog box in just a minute telling me to preview some of the settings of the PDF, but I don't really care about those right now, so I'm just going to select Save PDF and call it a day. Now, if I wanted to go and make a copy to show off on my social media account or whatever the case might be, I would just go and export this in a PNG or a JPEG format. So I would go to File, Export, and Save for Web. And I would select from the presets either PNG or JPEG so that I could easily view it on any kind of website or social media platform. I would just select PNG 24 is usually the default format that I select, so I would click Done, and that's ready for me to show it off to the world. So that's my collage. I don't expect you guys to do every single thing I said in the exact same way. I do want to see you guys customize it. Obviously include pictures of your loved ones, not random people, as I said earlier. And I can't wait to see what you guys make. You guys know how to reach me if you have any questions, so peace out.